You go to sleep tonight like normal. Phone on the nightstand. Alarm set for 7. Maybe you check your balance one last time before you close your eyes. $412 or $4,000 or $40,000. Doesn't matter. It's there. It's always been there. Then you wake up and it isn't. Not. The app is down. Not. Temporary maintenance. Not a glitch you refresh away with a cup of coffee. Gone. Every bank on the planet. Every branch. Every app. Every server. 4.5 billion accounts. Checking, savings, business, government. Erased in a single night, like someone unplugged the entire financial nervous system of the human race while we were asleep. And tonight, we're not just asking what happens to your money. We're asking what happens to you when the thing you never questioned turns out to be the only thing holding everything else up. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll never look at your bank balance the same way again. Here's the part that should unsettle you before we even get to the chaos. Your money was never really there. Not in the way you think. When your banking app shows a number, it isn't a picture of cash sitting in a vault with your name on it. It's an entry, a line in a database, a promise, written in ones and zeros, that the bank owes you that amount whenever you ask for it. That's it. That's the whole system. Trillions of dollars. And underneath it, no gold, no vault stacked with bills, just trust, wrapped in software. So what happens when the software disappears? Not. The money moves somewhere else. Not. You can still get cash from an ATM. I mean the record itself. The only proof that the money ever existed is gone. No backups, no blockchain, no paper ledger in a basement. Just gone. Economists have a term for what banks actually do. They don't store your money. They create credit, lending out far more than they hold. A system called fractional reserve banking. It sounds abstract. It is anything but. Because if the record disappears, the promise disappears. And a promise is the only thing your money ever was. Let that sink in for a second. Then let's watch it break. A woman named Elena taps her phone to pay for coffee. Decline. She laughs it off. Bad signal. Maybe. And tries her card. Declined again. She checks her banking app. It won't load. Not. Error 404. Not. Slow to load. The app icon is still there. It just opens into nothing. A blank white screen. Like the account behind it was never real to begin with. Within 20 minutes, this is happening to 400 million people across 2 continents, all at the exact same moment, and none of them know yet that it's global. Here's the part almost nobody thinks about first. It's not the rich who feel it first. It's not Wall Street traders staring at frozen terminals, though that's coming. It's the 7 a.m. shift workers whose paychecks just cleared at midnight and vanished with everything else. It's small business owners who made payroll yesterday and now can't prove a single employee got paid. It's the 81-year-old man standing at an ATM in Milan, pressing the same 4 buttons over and over because some part of him refuses to believe the machine is telling the truth. By 8 a.m. Eastern, stock markets that were supposed to open don't, because you cannot open an exchange when nobody can verify who owns what. Every trade, every settlement, every fund transfer for the last quarter century lived inside the same collapsed system. And here's your first big twist. This isn't a story about people losing money. It's a story about people losing proof. Proof of work, proof of ownership, proof that yesterday even happened the way they remember it. Stay with me, because it gets worse before we get to the interesting part. To understand why this isn't just annoying, you need to understand something most people never learn. Money isn't wealth. Money is information. It's a signal that tells a farmer he can trade his wheat for a mechanic's labor without the two of them ever needing to want each other's stuff direct. It's the reason a stranger in Tokyo will hand you a hotel room key based on nothing but a number transferred from a bank you've never heard of. Remove the signal, and you don't just lose your saving, you lose the language that lets strangers cooperate at scale. Within 48 hours, supply chains start seizing. Not because the trucks disappeared, and not because the food disappeared, because nobody can agree on who owns what's inside them. A shipping company won't release a container of grain to a grocery chain that technically, as of last night, can no longer prove it paid for it. Multiply that by every port, every warehouse, every gas station on Earth. This is the part that separates a bad week from a civilizational event. Modern economies don't run on cash. Physical currency, actual paper and coins, makes up a tiny fraction of the money that supposedly exists in the world. The rest is digital, meaning the vast majority of money that vanished was never something you could touch in the first place. So the countries that adapt fastest in the first week aren't the richest ones. They're the ones with the most physical cash still sitting in wallets and mattresses. Because for the first time in decades, a crumpled $20 bill is worth more than a platinum credit card. That's hook number 2 for you. In a world engineered for convenience, the least modern form of money becomes the most powerful currency on Earth. By day 4, something strange starts happening that nobody predicted. People start remembering how to barter, but not with strangers, with neighbors, with people they already trust, because trust, it turns out, is the one thing that didn't get deleted overnight. A dentist in Lisbon starts trading checkups for firewood and vegetables from people on her street. A mechanic in Ohio keeps a notebook, an actual paper notebook, logging who owes and what in hours of labor, and people honor it, because in a world with no banks, your word becomes your credit score. Governments scramble to do the one thing they still can, declare emergency script, temporary paper currency backed by nothing but a promise that this time, the promise will hold. Some countries print it within days, others can't agree fast enough, and their black markets fill the vacuum instead. Cigarettes, ammunition, bottled water becoming informal currency in cities where official money simply no longer exists. Here's the twist that should genuinely stop you. The countries that recover fastest aren't necessarily the wealthiest ones before the collapse. They're the ones with the strongest social trust, tight communities, local reputations, informal credit systems that already existed quietly underneath the official one. In other words, the real economy, the one that was always propping up the fake one, was never the banks at all. It was us. It was trust between people who show up for each other. The banks were just the paperwork. Weeks pass. Slowly, painfully, new systems emerge, some digital, rebuilt from whatever scattered records survived on personal devices and paper receipts. Some shockingly old-fashioned, like community ledgers and local currencies backed by nothing but a town's collective word. And here's the ending nobody sees coming. The world that rebuilds afterward isn't the same one that existed before. Some economists studying historical currency collapses, Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Argentina, point to the same pattern again and again. After a monetary collapse, the societies that recover fastest aren't the ones that simply reprint money. They're the ones that rebuild trust first and let the money follow. Which brings us to the real question hiding underneath this entire thought experiment. We spent this whole video imagining banks disappearing, but ask yourself something harder. If the record of your money vanished tomorrow, would anyone who knows you personally still believe you're good for it? Because that, not the number on your screen, was always the actual thing keeping the world running. The banks just gave it a number and called it currency. So the next time your app takes 3 extra seconds to load your balance, and your stomach drops for half a second before it appears, remember, that number was never really the point. It's just the fastest way humans ever found to write down a promise. If this made you look at your bank account differently, you're going to want to see what happens in our next experiment, because we're about to ask an even more dangerous question. What if that promise was suddenly worth double overnight for everyone, everywhere, at once? I'm Para, and money is never just money. I'll see you in the next one.